Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for today's webinar, Future-Proof Digital Commerce. It's the top of the hour, and as people are still joining, we are going to wait just a few more minutes. So just hang tight, and we will be back with you in 2 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, it's now 10:02 Eastern Time, and I think we should get started. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, Future-Proof Digital Commerce, How to Build Digital Commerce Now to Survive and Thrive. We all know this is hugely important at this time and place in the world. My name is Erica Goldwater. I'm the Director of Global Communications here at inRiver, and I'll be your host today. So before we dive into the presentation, I have just a few housekeeping items to go over. First of all, we are recording this webinar and we will share the recording with everyone as soon as it's over. And if you could please submit any questions you have either in the chat button or under the Q&A functionality in Zoom, we will be sure to answer your questions as soon as possible. We are hoping to keep this presentation rather conversational. So if a question comes up, and I can introduce it to the panelists in a timely fashion, we will do that and get your questions answered that way. Otherwise, we will do a live Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, please allow me to introduce our two speakers today, Marcus Goldberg, Director of Business Development for Microsoft for Western Europe, and Johan Bostrom, the co-founder and Chief Product Officer at inRiver. So I will hand over the presentation to Marcus now, and please welcome Marcus. Hi, Marcus.
Oh, hello. I'm sorry. I was on mute. Now, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Now you can hear me,
Wonderful.
and now I've got the information up there. So, yeah, pleased to be here. And for me, that's been with Microsoft for almost 15 years. That's been a tremendous change, actually, from the Microsoft where I started back then. That sold software to the cloud company that it actually is today. And I also had the opportunity to work with inRiver for the last 3 years and see that tremendous change that also has been to inRiver. So I'm going to start this session by this slide. That is during the COVID-19 pandemic this spring, where we really could see that the change that took place, where people moved to remote work, where people actually started to using Teams, which is a part of the Office 365 suite, which actually runs on our cloud platform in Azure, just like the inRiver application. Just during 1 week, there was 12 million new users that added on to that. So that, of course, put a tremendous stress on the network and the data center, but it actually coped, so it didn't go down. And I think this is really an example when we're going to talk about, the next generation commerce and the next generation cloud. Why do you want to buy a SaaS application? Because as many of you out there know, the demands, it will go up and down for retailers. Of course, it is, until Christmas, but it could be day and night, different seasons. So just, have that unlimited scale makes a huge difference in developing the SaaS applications of the future. And I'm going to show this. This is the Microsoft data centers around the globe. And I'm going to switch now over to this is the Azure website. And if you want to go down and really look at the different information, you could go at azure.com, because we're not going to nearly have the time to dig into all the good stuff that is here. But I'm going to go here on the left. There is an overview where you can actually go and you can scroll down. Here is actually that picture, and you can see that we have the data center, and you could go into the infrastructure more in detail. But the interesting thing to remember here is that now it's more than 160 data centers, and it's growing all the time. Like in Sweden, where I'm based, we're building 3 new data centers, and the data centers are depending on the country. There could be different rules in different countries. For instance, I know that many of you are now listening are in the US. There are specific data centers for government in the US. We have in the UK, we have a number of data centers within the EU that comply to EU rule. And you can actually choose where you want to deploy your workloads. So that's why we say, Azure, of course, it's global, but it's also local. It's also adopted to the local needs. And it's not only the data centers, but it's also the network, to secure bandwidth, that you also have your, when you run your SaaS application from inRiver, you want to secure, not only the data center, but also the bandwidth, so it remains up and running. And then we have a key thing when talking about the technology and the data centers. There goes a lot of resources and research into building the next generation data center. I show this one because we are now at the second generation of underwater data centers. Those are not, the big production data center that you think of, but this might be the data center of the future. Because if you think about it, it's good to have on the bottom of the sea because it's 4 degrees Celsius, so it's good cooling. And also most people actually live very close to the sea. But more importantly now is that when you think about the data center, we release every 2 years, there's a new generation of data centers, and each one are more energy effective. So then old ones become quickly obsolete. And if you build your own, it's also very hard to keep track on that. And I'm showing that we've got a lot of customers. Basically all the big Fortune 500 customers are using cloud services in Azure. And I'm going to talk a little bit about General Electric, because I know that we have some of you customers come also not only from retail, but also from industry. And we see a huge transformation within the manufacturing industry. And when we take General Electric, they are actually switching, the way they do business to actually offer IT in all of their products, and they connect them to the cloud. So this is a huge development for a company that is more than 100 years old. And I think one good example here is the GE Healthcare division that actually does a lot of equipment for healthcare. And in this specific case here, they are providing monitoring for intensive care units. So what happened was that they actually launched a new solution for monitoring the healthcare and all the patients, and that they needed to roll that out extremely quick around the world when COVID-19 hit. So then they deployed it on Azure to keep it safe and also to keep it globally scalable. So that is one example on how you can do, like GE develops new functionality. They roll it out really quick to a global audience. And when we talk about inRiver that we are today, it's actually the same thing as with General Electric, because inRiver product marketing cloud is deployed on top of the Azure platform, and also leveraging all the innovation that Microsoft does. So if Microsoft makes new functions around AI, for instance, those could be leveraged within the inRiver product. So that is also for you as customers. You could use that, and you could know that the inRiver innovation, they will focus on the specific task related to the PIM platform. All the other plumbing, security, and things like that will be taken care of by Microsoft. So that will also enable inRiver to deliver much quicker than in the old ways, where you had a product that you installed locally. So this is a key question, and I was the first product manager for Azure in Sweden back in 2011. Then people asked this question: can I trust the cloud? Now the question has actually turned around: can I trust my own IT? Can they really do the things that is possible to do in the cloud? Then the cloud, of course, it's not one cloud. The question that you should ask yourself is really, this one: can I trust my supplier of cloud services? Or in this specific example, this is what you should ask: can I trust the inRiver product marketing cloud, and can I trust Microsoft Azure? So I'm going to try to dig into a little bit about, can I trust Azure? So I'm going back to the Microsoft Azure website, and here you can go way to the right. You can see that it says resources, trusted and legal, and if you hit the trusted icon here, you can download a book, an ebook. This one, is going to tell you everything about security, privacy, compliance, all the good stuff. If you want to take my word for it, you could just take the high level. When it comes to security, Microsoft invests more than $1 billion each year in security, and we have around 3,500 security experts that are online helping out the uptime. And when it comes to compliance, instead of evaluating a vendor, you could actually look at the type of certification a specific vendor has. And Microsoft is the vendor with the most compliance certification. You could dig into that here. And depending, for instance, if you are a bank in EU, then there are specific rules. If you are a government agency in the US, there are different ones, and you can see that those come. I'm going to show you one that is widely accepted and interesting. This one, ISO, the International Standardization Organization. So this is about practice of protecting personal data in the cloud. Some companies, they just say, okay, do you fulfill 27018? Then you fulfill the needs, and you could go into the details, where the data is stored, how do we handle the data, how do we destroy the data, all of it, how is it audited. So you can really dig into this, and there is tons of information, or you can just trust me on it, or you can go into the details here. So that one is good under more trusted there, and you have all the interesting things coming into that. So coming back to this particular question, I think we answered that. And then important to know, you actually own and control your own data, because some cloud services, if you, for instance, get into Facebook, and if you read the fine information there, the fine print, which nobody does, they actually do own your data. But then the business model, on the other hand, is actually that you are the product, since it's for free. Here, it's a paid service, you own it, and you pay for the service, which is a different business model. So compliance certifications. And with that, my time is out, and I would like to leave this over to Johan here.
Thank you, Marcus. You can advance to my first slide, please.
Yes.
So a little bit about inRiver before we dig into inRiver and commerce and the benefits of the SaaS application. inRiver is a software company. We're founded in 2007 and headquartered in Sweden. I work out of our US operations HQ, which is in Chicago. We also have offices in Amsterdam and other places. We are a focused software company. We go to market via a partner network. So we have an extensive partner network that can help our customers with everything from integration to business consulting. This is leveraged by over 550 customers across the globe, representing about 1,500 brands in total 23 countries. We have also a vast ecosystem of technology partners. So Microsoft, of course, being one of the most important ones, but we also have partners like Adobe and Salesforce and others that we have pre-built integrations to, so that you can quickly get online and start using inRiver together with the rest of your services. We are recognized as best in class by most industry analysts. And to get to the point of today, the solution is based on a SaaS model, SaaS standing for software as a service. So let's dig a little bit into that. Next slide, please. So the SaaS application is subscription-based, meaning that you pay as you go. You pay for the platform and you can pay for add-on functionality. There's unlimited users, unlimited data, unlimited SKUs, which means that you can also ramp cost to value. So you can start small and then you can scale into the solution. So you don't have to go into these big bang projects. You can target the downstream endpoints that you want to feed with this pristine product data. So with a true SaaS platform, there are no upgrades, or I shouldn't say there are no upgrades, because we actually do upgrade every other week. But it's not with any interruption to service. What we should say is that there are no upgrade projects. So as an inRiver customer, you always run the latest, greatest version of inRiver, and we will keep it updated. So when we introduce new functionality, we introduce new UI, UX features, you get that automatically in a continuous way. So the good thing here is it's easy to start, easy to get it going, and there are no hidden costs, and you can scale into the solution as you grow as an organization, as you grow your commerce initiatives, as you want to syndicate your data to more and more endpoints, more retailers, marketplaces, data pools, and so forth. Next slide, please. So one question that I think is interesting to ask when we look at commerce is like, why did you put it in the cart? Did you put it in the cart because you like the vendor of the commerce platform? Or do you like the vendor of the CMS platform? Or do you like the vendor of the integration platform? Probably not. 99.9% of the customers out there don't really care about any old platform. They don't really know. They won't even go into built with and look it up. They just want it to work. And what they interact with is actually not really the code in the front-end solutions. They're interacting with content. And they're interacting with your navigation. And they're interacting with search. And that means that they're interacting with search on Google. They're interacting with search on Amazon. And they're interacting with search and guided navigation on your websites. And all this is content and data. There's nothing but content and data that actually runs this. So if you look at it, it's a commerce engine, a search engine, a merchandising engine. And as it is an engine, it needs fuel to run. And that fuel is data and content. So if we look at what are the properties then, so we can go to the next slide. If we want to be able to tell great product stories, if we want to be able to get customers to buy our products, whether it's a B2B buyer or a B2C shopper, doesn't really matter. It starts with, at the top, being findable. And it's being findable, one, of course, on Google and Amazon, but it's also important that it's findable and easy to navigate, and so they can quickly find the information that they're looking for. More and more studies will tell you this. McKinsey came out with one last week where we see that the most important thing for the customer is to quickly find what they're looking for. And of course, the product content is almost as important for them when they have found what they're looking for. So findable, really key. And of course, being findable means that you have great data, granular data with high quality, and that also is reflecting how customers want to navigate and buy. One example can be that we tag something with Gore-Tex, and of course all human beings almost on this earth knows that Gore-Tex is something that makes apparel waterproof. However, most would probably search for waterproof, and they wouldn't find it if you don't have a synonym to it so that it picks up Gore-Tex as something that is waterproof. As simple as that makes a huge difference. Of course, it needs to be correct. Small errors in the data can be disastrous and can make the buyer jump out of their buying journey. Something as simple as gross weight being lower than net weight might not be a disaster from the customer's perspective. But if you can't control something as simple as the weight of the product, and that's not correct, they are likely not to trust the rest of your content either. It also needs to be consistent, because as we know, it's very hard to control the customer's buying journey today. They will shop around, and they are very empowered by all the search engines and all the transparent information that's out there. So consistent is really key, because when they are shopping around, they want the same messaging all across the buying journey. And sometimes consistent and correct are confused to be the same thing. But unfortunately, things can be consistently incorrect. So it's not the same thing. They're just related to each other. And we need to focus on both. For any buyer or any shopper, it's very important to be relevant. If you look at retail, the most important thing for retail real estate investment was location, location, location. That has now switched when we have the customers online to be relevancy, relevancy, relevancy. We need to be relevant so we quickly catch their attention. And that is related to something that is contextual, because for each buyer, for each persona, and for each individual even, the context can be different. I can go into a web shop looking for a spare part. My friend goes into the same web shop looking for an accessory. We will both end up buying the same SKU, but we will not get there in the same way. So we need to be able to create a relevant and contextual experience. And again, that's all about the data and the content. Last but not least, it needs to be desirable, especially within B2C. We're not just shopping because we need things. We shop around because we want to do something that makes us feel better, or we want a pair of new sneakers because we're going to go running next weekend and we want to look good. But it's also trustworthy. So desirable is one part of it, but trustworthy, especially within B2B, is key. And this is about how you tell the story. It, of course, is also about having a lot of information so they can get all their answers in one product detail page. They shouldn't have to be looking around on PDFs and stuff like that. They need to get that information quickly served up so it becomes desirable and trustworthy for them. Next slide, please. So do we have any questions here, Erica?
Yes, actually, thanks so much for the presentation, Marcus and Johan. We do have one question that came in. You know, you mentioned an example of GE, but Johan, do you have any examples of traditional organizations, other manufacturing companies that have successfully moved to SaaS or e-commerce?
Yeah, I would say that most of the customers today that we have have been moving to SaaS because of just the way that the market is behaving. The customer's behavior is changing rapidly, and the platforms need to change with them. And thus, you can't have these long, gruesome 18-month upgrade projects anymore. You got to be at least on par, but preferably better than your competitors. And thus, the SaaS platform makes a lot of sense because it makes it easier to move quickly. And like Marcus alluded to, I mean, we are building our product on top of everything that Microsoft provides in the Azure infrastructure. So we don't really need to do all that heavy lifting with the plumbing. So we can focus on the business features, which is really great. And when Microsoft comes up with new AI features, we can quickly get them into our development pipeline and release them. And release small features and release often. So small and incremental, and to really be able to drive business value.
Okay, great. One of the other questions that we received was, you know, and it's similar to how you just answered this, is what are the biggest advantages to moving to SaaS? Because I have to sell this concept to my organization. So I'm sure it's, is there anything in addition to what you just said that, you know, we could help this person sell to their organization the value of SaaS, maybe the security aspect of it?
Yeah, I think the security aspect is important. I would like almost to say that the only way of securing your own servers as well as Microsoft can is cutting the cables to the internet. And that wouldn't be very business users friendly, and it wouldn't help your customers. So the security part is really important. And there's no way that any customer on their own can invest as much as Microsoft does when it comes to security.
That's true. And we definitely don't want to cut those cables. One other question that came in, how does PIM really deliver a better customer experience? Johan, you mentioned, you know, relevancy as being just as important as location when it's online. Is that one of the things that PIM does help with?
Well, yes, absolutely. I think that there are often a little bit of confusion when it comes to PIM as being sort of a database for the product data and the product content. And that's true. It is one single shop for everything product content and data related. But it's also a content creation factory, because what we see is that we need more images. We need AR and VR in the future, or it's actually already here. We need better descriptions. We need more synonyms to support better searches, and that needs to be produced somewhere. And thus the PIM system's primary function is to see to that you can effectively produce better product data and better product content so that you can engage customers, help them find things quickly, and of course, adapt as you see that the customers are changing their behavior. You can adapt your content so that you constantly optimize it so that it sees to that your conversion rate goes up and that your average order values goes up, because that's at the end of the day what we're all after.
Right. Okay. Thank you for answering that. And another one just came in from someone anonymous. How do you work with product dimensions in the SaaS solution?
Well, this is, from that perspective, not very different from an on-prem solution. Product dimensions are typically in a unit of measure. So if it's a length, you want it to be both in the metric system and the imperial system. And if it is a weight, probably something similar. If you're selling in the US, you want it in Fahrenheit. If you're selling in Germany, you want it to be in Celsius. So you got to store all that data, and you got to see to that you can have support for unit of measure on all those specification values that you need to sort of translate between different regions.
Okay, and of course that speaks to the consistency, right? So I think that answers that question. We're nearing the top of the hour. It's actually 10:30 now. So I just want to ask one other question that came in, and then we will wrap this up. But to you, Johan, again, sorry, many questions for you. Do you have B2C clients using inRiver? You had mentioned some B2B, but are there also B2C clients as well?
Absolutely. We have about a 50-50 split between B2C and B2B customers. And to a large extent, a lot of the customers today are both. They're both a brand, they're a brand manufacturer, but they also have their own stores. So they're selling to a dealer distributor network, which they need to syndicate the data to, so that they can in their turn sell to the end customer or the shopper in this case. There's sort of a split between B2B and B2C. And I think this line is blurring more and more, and it has been for the last 10 years. But today I would have a hard time tagging a lot of our customers if they're B2B or B2C, because there's so much of both.
Right. And I think that's, that's again, back to the title of the webinar, Future-Proofing Digital Commerce. Everything is changing so rapidly these days for many, many reasons, but especially for COVID, and traditional companies like manufacturing organizations like GE are thinking ahead and always looking to the next opportunity. And so I think that's why Azure's been so important to the growth of e-commerce, and certainly inRiver too. So, as I mentioned, we have reached the end of our presentation. If there are any additional questions, we'll be happy to answer them via email and share them with the respondents and the recipients of the webinar. If you'd like to learn more about the future-proofing commerce and the power of Microsoft Azure, and certainly how inRiver helps global organizations speed time to market and increase revenues, we really encourage you to join us at Pinpoint Digital this year. It's going to be our first virtual event. We've held Pinpoint, which is our large user conference, for 7 years now, but this will be virtual, of course. It's October 5 through 9 in online, and it's free. So you can invite your colleagues, sit in, and you can hear more from Microsoft and the advantages of Azure, as well as many different technology and customer and partners of the inRiver ecosystem. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Marcus and Johan, for a great presentation, and thank you, attendees. We appreciate you joining us. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.